This juice is put in a pre-fermentation tank where the natural enzymes start their action. This natural clarifying stage leads to the formation of the famous brown hat, just like a cap of like foam and muck that you get in wine, you would kind of press off, or in beer, almost the exact same thing. Then the limpid juice is extracted and sent in the alcoholic fermentation tank where it stays for several weeks. At the end of this slow fermentation, from the natural yeast that exists that were mixed in from the skins, at the end of this slow fermentation, the residual sugar is 30 grams per liter. Now, in comparison with wine, you start to detect sweetness in wine between 10 to 15 grams per liter, depending on the acidity. And various wines, you'll feel it differently. But above about 9 to 10 grams is where most people can start to sense it, or up to 15, depending on your sensitivity. So this is 30 grams, so twice as much sugar as a dry wine. The cider is bottled by froth development, and the fermentation will carry on in the bottle. The natural carbonic gas freed up and shut by the cork will lead to the cider's natural effervescence. So there's enough sugar there left in the wine to be able to have a second fermentation, and that's what gives it, you'll see, spectacular sparkle and bubbles. It's a really spectacular wine. Very similar to champagne in this very way, but instead of champagne, where they have to add sugar to it, the natural sugar in this wine and the natural yeast are all that it needs to be made. It's a much simpler, much more natural process than one that requires more intervention, although champagne is completely natural. The yeast will form a deposit which contributes to the aroma development. The cider, which is kept standing upright and in good conditions, less than 15 degrees Celsius, will improve. The froth will get thinner and the cider more fleshy. The Domaine du Pont has cider pétilloge, which is well balanced and strong. Okay, we're going to get into what exactly this is. Étonné du Pont. Now let's taste it, see what we got. By the way, $10. $10 for this bottle. It's the most delicious thing you can buy for $10 in a bottle, almost guaranteed. Maybe some beers, but not 750 milliliters worth. Bang for your buck. And we're going to try it together. And I put it in a wine glass because I want to be able to see, if you could see this, this is effervescent. And the effervescence keeps coming exactly like champagne. Let's pour a little bit more so you can see what it looks like. How much bubbles will come up. It's gorgeous. There's a little bit of a pale peach color to that, and hints of orange in the foam. It's got a beautiful caramel orange flavor color, like Cointreau, or the orange liqueurs. Slightly cloudy from the yeast that we described before, and obviously soft apples, but it's got this smell that really, I think, is best described as walking into a fresh cider mill. I remember as a kid going to Franklin Cider Mill, a few miles from where I grew up in Southfield, and they would be pressing fresh cider there and having yeasty, fresh donuts that they'd be baking, and powdering with cinnamon and sugar. I don't smell the cinnamon and sugar. I smell the yeast of the bread, or the donuts that are being fried. I smell the yeast of the apples that's coming through. It takes me exactly to that place, and that's what great wine does. It will what's the word? It will take you back. You will transport. Thank you, Star Trek. It will transport to another time and place, somewhere past in your life, somewhere maybe in your future. Who knows? Somewhere you've never been. And that's what this does. For $10, hell of a deal. Let's give it a little taste and see what's going on more. There's sort of a lively acidity, almost like a vinegar hint of it, which you'll see balances with food incredibly, because that's the acid that's in there. Acetic acid, very high in, that's what vinegar is, and that's one of the balancing forces in wine as well, and obviously in cider. There's a lovely caramel quality that coats like delicious baked apples, but they're much more complex. There's a lot of spice. It's not quite cinnamon, but it hits on the palate in a similar way as cinnamon does. There's a little bit of lemon notes. There's a little bit of custard notes. I'm gonna struggle and get you a couple more and convince you to try this for $10 because it's not. It's crazy. It's good. The foam is incredible. It just washes completely away like suds. What I look for in good champagne often is that it feels like the sea. That a wave of apple foam is washing through your mouth and taking great acidity to cleanse it with food. So stay tuned. Tune in for part two. We're gonna pair some cheeses and a little bit of food together with this great apple wine. The cider, celui de Boucher Bout de Normandie. Ettenez du bon.